Okay, folks, if you are not interested in the immigration issue or it being defended or talked about, you need to just end your viewing of this video right now and go do something else, because that's exactly what this video is going to be about. Now, I am concerned, and I'm concerned about all of the illegal residents that are now living within the country. I am particularly concerned about the children, the kids that are covered under DACA, and obviously, some of the kids aren't covered under DACA, but that's my first area of concern. And you can have your own opinion as far as they're concerned, and you're welcome to it. But mine is that something needs to be done, and it needs to be done quick, to give them a feeling of security on what their position is now under this administration and what it is going to be. And in my opinion, if the kids were brought here and they were underage, there should be legislation created to allow them to stay, particularly if this is the only country that they have known from their moment of realizing that they were living in America. Now, obviously, an adjustment is going to have to be made in order not to separate families. Now, I'm all for deporting people that have actual dangerous felony convictions, okay? If that is in fact the case, in my opinion, all bets are off and they have to go. And arrangements are going to have to be made if they have children in the country. But that being said, if they have been living a regular life, which I assume you have, I believe I have to some degree, and the only thing that they have against them is, traffic tickets or, jaywalking tickets, some minor misdemeanors. Maybe they got sued for not paying a bill and they lost. That's a civil matter, by the way. Then we need to make arrangements or adjustments to leave these people alone. Now, should they have to register? Should they have to go through the process of becoming legalized residents? Yes, absolutely. I agree with that. But you have to give them a pathway to get to that status. Now, until and unless we can all get on the same page. Anyway, sorry about that. Anyway, that's my position basically on this situation. Now, with that being said, unless we can actually talk about the exact item, okay, and not try to dance around immigration, not try to filibuster, not try to answer one question with the answer to something that obviously has nothing to do with the question being asked, we're not going to get anywhere. And in my opinion, there are a lot of people who just don't want to answer the question. Now, Donald Trump had that press conference on Thursday, and he was asked about the DACA situation. Here's what he said.
DACA is a very, very difficult subject for me, I will tell you. To me, it's one of the most difficult subjects I have, because you have these incredible kids, in many cases, not in all cases, but they were brought here in such a way. It's a very, very tough subject. We're going to deal with DACA with heart.
Now, Donald Trump's been asked about DACA at least, my count, 3 times, and what the people that are covered under DACA, what should they do? And he has not answered, and none of his administration have actually answered that question. Now, Joy Reid had a panel on Rosie Perez and another immigration advocate, and then she also had a former congressman who is now working for Newsmax, which is a severely right-wing news organization. And I'm just going to give you an example, just by playing this clip, of somebody who cannot answer a question. This guy reminds me so much of Kellyanne Conway that it really hurts. Every time this guy was asked a question, he wanted to go on and ramble for 5 minutes, and might not be 5, might be 3, but with these brief segments, it's a lot. And he was never answering the question. And then after he got done speaking and it was one of the other ladies' turn, he was trying to jump in, when they were trying to make their point, which in my opinion is totally disrespectful. And it's guys like this that don't help the process. They don't help the process. Number one, the guy was not really respectful. He was making conjectures that had nothing to do with the situation. And Rosie Perez made a statement and she was right. He was trying to place the responsibility for helping the DACA kids onto Hollywood, and that's not their job. It's the job of Congress to take care of that situation and nobody else's, because Congress has to make laws that are going to cover this. Anyway, I'm starting to filibuster like he did. Here's the segment. You judge for yourself.
Good morning and welcome back to AM Joy. Immigration officials have arrested nearly 700 people in multi-city raids and operations across the country, prompting protests all week, including a national Day Without Immigrants strike on Thursday that put a spotlight on the role that immigrants play in the U.S. economy. The protests continue today. A few hours from now in Los Angeles, tens of thousands of people are expected to gather to call for an immediate halt to the ICE raids and to Donald Trump's travel ban. The president suggested on Thursday that he is working on a compassionate way to deal with immigrants covered by DACA. That's the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals policy that allows some undocumented immigrants who arrived in the U.S. as minors to attend school and to work without fear of deportation. But already one man protected under DACA is facing deportation. Immigration and Customs Enforcement arrested 23-year-old Daniel Ramirez Medina last week. Justice Department officials say Medina has gang ties and is therefore eligible for deportation, a claim his attorney says is false. As Medina's attorney fights for his release, the fate of some 750,000 other dreamers remains frighteningly unclear. Also on Friday, the Associated Press reported that it obtained an 11-page draft memo that outlined what appeared to be a Trump administration proposal to mobilize as many as 100,000 National Guard troops to round up unauthorized immigrants. Now, the White House has vigorously denied the report, and the Department of Homeland Security has said the memo was a very early draft for an idea that was never seriously considered.
Now, if you believe that one, I got a bridge in San Francisco that I want to sell you. All right, and that's got Steve Bannon's fingerprints all over it. And because that particular memo, again, possibly early stages, because that memo was potentially leaked, obviously they're not going to step up to the plate and say, yeah, we're considering this. Obviously they're going to do the exact opposite and say, yeah, that was an early form and it was never considered. That does not mean that it is not going to be considered in the future. Read between the lines.
And joining me now is activist and actress Rosie Perez, Maria Hinojosa, anchor and executive producer of Latino USA, and former Republican Congressman of Arizona, J.D. Hayworth. Thank you all for being here. Former Congressman Hayworth, I want to go to you first, because Donald Trump ran on the idea of deporting essentially all undocumented migrants from the United States. And now you have raids taking place across the United States that are really terrifying people. How can the Republican Party justify going after, at least at this point, one DACA recipient as part of those raids?
Well, good morning to you, Joy, and to Maria and Rosie as well. And just a friendly amendment to the introduction. Obviously, I am a recovering member of Congress, now gainfully employed by Newsmax TV, where I'm a host. And I know, Joy, in the television business, we want to make sure we put our affiliations out there.
Sure.
You've put a lot in that one question, so let's unpack it just a little bit, if we could, please. Number one, I think what we have to come to grips with is the notion, are we going to enforce laws? And with reference to the situation in Seattle, let's let the judge review the facts of the case. You laid that out. I think it's important to understand this is just as elemental as we all live in apartments or in homes. We have locks on the door. If anyone came in unauthorized, that would be considered breaking and entering without your permission. And just as we all search for personal security, we have to understand that immigration and the question of who comes to our country lawfully, remember, immigration is a term of law. When you abandon it, you're not talking about immigrants. You're talking, sadly, about something else entirely. So I think it's important that the laws are enforced. As I recall, Mr. Trump did not run specifically on deportation, but he did run on law enforcement. And I can tell you, Joy, in my own situation, what I have seen in Arizona is when local jurisdictions were enforcing immigration law, people were obeying immigration law. So it's important to remember, when the laws are enforced, people follow the law.
Well,
All right. In the interest of correctness, Donald Trump did run on deporting. First, it was 11 million people, and then it was approximately 3 to 4 million people. But he did run on deportation. So the guy just gave us a bit of, I'll call it misinformation, trying to be kind to this guy.
actually did run on having he ran on having a massive deportation force, which a lot of people believe is happening right now.
There's all well, first again, let's correct this. The deportation force, if you want to call it that, exists. Immigration, Customs, and Enforcement. The United States Border Patrol, again, it's within the framework of existing law. And you know,
all right, let me stop this guy right here. Trump was not talking about Border Patrol when he was talking about a deportation force, and he made those statements on, I guess, the Morning Joe show, where he said we absolutely are going to have a deportation force. That is not Border Patrol, which is what he's trying to state. Trump was talking about a specific force like that, quote unquote, 100,000 National Guardsmen that they were never considering, bullshit, calling up in order to augment the people from ICE in their deportation duties. So again, this guy's full of crap.
I think there's a way to end all the hysterics and all the name calling on this. Let's follow existing law, and let's perhaps find a way legislatively to deal with people who are brought here as youngsters through no fault of their own. And if people step up, if the Hollywood left would step up with its own...
Okay, now here he comes. Now he's going to attack the Hollywood left. My response to him would be, Congress had at least a year, if not two, in order to come up with legislation to cover, at the minimum, the DACA kids. Where were they? I thought that was their job, to provide laws, legislation, in order to cover these type situations, not Hollywood.
Resources and personally sponsor those who have come here, if that can be made a provision of law. But if we return to the notion of sponsorship and responsibility and knowing who is coming here, I don't believe that's unreasonable.
I mean, you also know, sir, as a TV host, that there's limited TV times. I want to let everybody...
All right, yeah, and he filibustered a lot. But back to what I was saying, he's talking about sponsorship, and we need to know who's coming here. We're talking about the DACA kids, okay? They're already here. They're already here. Now, notice how when the other two ladies start to speak, how he consistently jumps in and tries to overtalk them.
in on this conversation.
Sure,
You
but
mentioned the
you're asking,
Hollywood
so I
left,
was having
Rosie
to change
Perez, so
that.
I'm going to go right to the member of the Hollywood left that's on our panel right now. Your response to what you just heard.
Well, first of all, I'm not a lefty. I'm not a liberal. I'm a Democrat, conservative. So I take offense to that, sir, with all due respect. You can't lump us
Well,
all
good.
into
It's
one,
good to hear from
one
you,
thing.
Rosie.
Yes, good to hear from you too, but I still don't agree with you. And
That's
Trump
fine.
did run on deporting immigrants, undocumented immigrants, and what have you. But to say that it's up to the Hollywood elite to fix this problem is insane. That's why we have a government. We have government and we have lawmakers to address this problem. That is your job. That is your job. My
Well, first
job
of all,
as an
it
American.
was my
Hold on,
job.
JD. One
sir.
person's talking. You
Hold on,
do think
sir,
you're not
because
okay.
I respected you and was quiet, so please offer me the same respect. Now, our job, not as Hollywood elites, but as an American citizen, is to speak up and to speak and have our voices heard. And you cannot quiet us because of that is our constitutional right. So people telling us Hollywood actors to sit down and be quiet. If you're applying that to us, then apply it to yourself as well.
Yeah.
So
I
that
think
nonsense
that's
really has to.
precisely my point.
No, it wasn't your point. Your point was that we should take on the responsibility of our elected officials. So therefore, that's what you were saying.
Rosie got it in one. And again, notice how he keeps trying to jump in there and not let the guests complete their thoughts or statements.
Not going to go
No,
and,
that's not what I was saying.
Yes, it was. We're not going to go and reach out to
no.
every undocumented person and help them out. We are doing that, by the way. I am personally doing that, by the way. But it's not my job.
Are you sponsoring immigrants who
Hold on a second, JD, we're not going to divert into a conversation about whether everyone in Hollywood should go and find an undocumented migrant and personally sponsor them. That isn't even a solution to the 11 million undocumented in the country. But I want to come to Mariana also, because we do have people who are responsible for fixing these problems. They're called members of Congress. Several of them participated in a meeting with Immigration and Customs Enforcement and came out of that meeting believing, in their view, that all 11 million undocumented people in the country are now at risk of deportation. But there were some Hispanic Democrats who were not even allowed in the room. Several Hispanic Democrats were denied entry into the meeting with Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Congressman Luis Gutierrez of Illinois was one of them. He tweeted about the fact that Speaker Ryan's staff actually kept members of Congress out of the meeting. Do you have any reporting on why that was? How could it be that members of Congress were not allowed in?
No,
All right, and just so that you're aware, there were also members of the Congressional Black Caucus that were kept out of that meeting, and the excuse they gave was there wasn't enough room for everybody.
actually don't have reporting on that. But what I can tell you in response to what former Congressman JD said, to say that there's a hysterical and that we all need to calm down, with all due respect, you can say that because of your position of privilege. Excuse me, as a white man.
Oh.
So, yes, I'm sorry to say that to you, because
So
what
this is interesting. Let's understand what you're saying. No, I'm being attacked. I'm
So
being
you can
attacked.
respond in a minute. Hold on
Instead
a
of
second.
diversity,
JD,
you're interested in
What happened?
divisiveness.
No,
That's very
JD, you
instructive,
need to
Maria.
listen, because you will not be stopped and questioned at any point as to whether or not you have papers or legitimacy to be in this country. And what has happened from the members of Congress who tweeted that out, for example, Joaquin Castro, who said, I believe now that every single undocumented immigrant is at risk. So of course, myself being an immigrant who was not born in this country, and as I'm looking at that and then getting on the subway, and I'm like, so exactly what is going to happen here? Are all of us who are not white going to be asked to show our papers? That is what this president has done. He has created a situation where you can sit back and say that we're being hysterical, but I ask you, when have you spoken to an undocumented immigrant in the last 3 days, 4 days, to ask them what it feels like to be terrorized in their own country? You have not done that, have you? Have you?
I will tell you what's happened
How
to
many
me,
friends
and since
of
you've asked
yours
me,
are undocumented immigrants?
first of all, you're setting up a false premise. And
No,
if you
it's
want an
not
answer
actually a
to
false
question,
premise.
Maria,
Hold on.
first you've already played the politics of division. Look, I knew it was going to be 3 against 1 when I agreed to come in.
JD, well,
You
we're not
hold
going to
on and let
filibuster.
me
We're
answer.
not going to filibuster.
No, we're
we
not.
need to
I'm
have
gonna
right.
answer
One
the
person's
question
going to
if you
talk
let
at a
me.
time. One person's going to talk
That's
at a
right.
time. Okay?
And I'm
It
gonna
just
be
can't be
talking.
only you. That's the problem. So
Are you-
here's the question.
we've listened to
Here's
two
the
other
question. Here's the question.
Uh-huh.
The likelihood that you would be stopped and asked to show that you are documented as an American citizen is very low. The likelihood that Maria would be stopped,
Or that
Rosie would be stopped, or that I would be stopped is much higher. So I think that is a valid question to ask: is have you? You are not at that kind of risk.
Can I answer?
Sure.
Because I've actually gone through questioning by the Border Patrol. When I was moving from Cincinnati and to Arizona and driving along our southeast border, I have been stopped by the Border Patrol.
He's a liar. Oh my God, he's a liar. Okay? He said that unless he was moving to a border town, and I don't even believe it then. Okay, for all of you who basically travel the country, which I have, you can head down out of California, okay, on US 5, okay, in California from California, Oregon, Washington. You could shoot all the way down on US 5, and you can get all the way to, I think it's 805. I think it's either 805 or 850. I forget what the number is. But anyway, you can travel all the way down US 5, basically, and get to the border. You will not be stopped, okay? You will not be stopped. And for him to try to bullshit us on that one, that's a bunch of crap, okay? You could take 5 all the way to Tijuana, pretty much. Okay, it's not 5 when you're absolutely going across the border, but it takes you all the way to Tijuana. There's no border stops when you're heading south. Okay, you can take 45 all the way down through Texas, okay, and take that all the way down to the border. There are no stops heading south, okay? Now, honestly, I've been through Arizona, but I haven't headed completely south when I've gone through Arizona, okay, going south. But I can tell you, Customs Border Patrol is not stopping anybody that's heading south, okay? There are no checkpoints that you have to pull up to stop and they ask you any questions. Now, north is another story completely. There are checkpoints coming out of Juarez across the border. You're going to be obviously stopped at the border, and then there are further checkpoints further north of the border checkpoint. You're going to be stopped, and for the most part, you know, it just depends on what you look like. I've been stopped. I've had the dogs sniffing around my car because they thought I was a drug dealer. I don't know how that was because I was wearing, you know, it was the fall. I'm wearing a business suit. I gave them my driver's license, etc. They asked me why I went. Obviously, it was for business. They took a look at me, waved me to the second checkpoint area. The dogs came out there. They sniffed like crazy. I didn't have any drugs, so, you know, it took about 20 minutes, and then I was on my way, okay? There are no checkpoints going east and west, okay? If he came out of Ohio, Cincinnati, Ohio, more than likely, okay, more than likely, he shot down until he's going to Arizona. He probably took 75 or 65. He found his way to those and then swung down more than likely till he got to, I want to say probably 20. 20 into 10, that would have taken him directly into Arizona. Okay, and those, it's either 20 into 10 or he would have had to take 40 and come down. I don't give a damn what he says. He did not come through a single checkpoint as far as border control is concerned because he didn't get close enough to the damn border if he was moving directly from Ohio to Arizona. Okay, and again, the only caveat is, and I don't believe this guy because, you know, he's he's a city guy. He was not moving to a border town in Arizona. So he got nowhere close. He's lying, okay? He's thinking about the checkpoints coming away from the border. And again, there are tons of those. And yeah, you are going to be stopped. And if you don't look the way that they think you should look, they're going to ask you for documentation. I've traveled back and forth between California and Mexico with Hispanic friends, and sometimes they got hassled and sometimes they didn't. I'll just put it to you in plain English. But now it's a whole different story. They're going to if you're Hispanic, they're going to probably make you recite the alphabet from A to Z if you're heading north, coming away from the Mexican border.
I have been asked if I was a citizen. My car has been examined, and the same thing has happened. Anyone in Southern California, Rosie, perhaps if you go down south to San Diego, everybody has had a situation where there have been traffic stops for border security.
Have you ever been held by
that is nothing
immigration?
unique.
Have you ever been held
by immigration? It's fascinating.
See, that's what I thought. See, this guy came out of California, and he basically doesn't know. Well, I guess he's going to make the assumption that nobody really knows what happens. And I'm telling you, there are no checkpoints in California heading south. Absolutely not.
Been asked to present something beyond your driver's license? Have you been asked to present your
That I
passport?
have, not
Have you
by
been asked to present
immigration,
your
not
birth
by immigration,
certificate?
but by federal law enforcement. Not by immigration, but by federal law enforcement. I've been asked for my date of birth. I've been asked for my social security.
That's bullshit. She just said, or you asked for any documentation other than your birth certificate. They don't ask you for any documentation other than your birth certificate, unless it's your driver's license if you're driving, and they may ask you for your proof of insurance. But short of that, okay? And at the same time, what they're saying is they ask you for this information. Now, you're not worried. You just hand it to them. They take a look at it. They take a look at you. And 3 seconds later, you're on your way. Somebody like me, or a Hispanic looking person, whatever that looks like, they're going to examine it. They're going to eye you up and down. They're going to examine it again, eye you up and down. Maybe they start asking you questions, ridiculous questions sometimes, and maybe they don't. But you're going to be under a lot more scrutiny if you're a minority coming north of that border than this guy. And anything that he says to the contrary is bullshit.
It's not the same thing.
Of course it is. It's law enforcement. Now, see, this is fascinating because you want to get away from being a nation of laws.
And let me just ask you something, sir.
This is very instructive. This is very instructive.
JD, you have to let other people talk.
Yeah,
you
you're
can't
being
be
a
the
little
only one
rude.
speaking.
When you were pulled over and you were stopped and you were questioned,
This guy is a real prick. He just disrespected the moderator of her own show.
did fear strike your soul? Did fear strike
What
your
happened
soul?
to me was-
Did fear strike your soul? Did fear strike
It
your
was
soul
somewhat
and say,
disconcerting,
am I
but
going to
I
be
took out
arrested? Am I
my-
going
I
to
took
take
out
in?
my
Am I going to be
IDs,
questioned?
and
Were you afraid? Were you terrified?
It was somewhat disconcerting. I will grant you
Disconcerting
that.
is not
But
He's lying. It never happened. He's making shit up.
I also understand the greater good. I also understand the greater good of national security,
Okay.
because it is not a question of ethnicity.
Okay.
It's a question of security.
It actually is a question of
I know
ethnicity.
facts
It
are
actually
stubborn
is.
things,
So here's-
and I know you want to spin this false narrative this morning rather than look for solutions.
Oh, so you
and
get
that's
to
fine.
do
We
it
can play
really
that
false.
game just like
Right, and
Luis
just-
Gutierrez
we're not
did in
gonna allow
Congress,
you, right.
claiming he was shut out of the member. Now, I understand what you guys are pulling, and it's very instructive,
We're not
and I
pulling
appreciate
anything.
the chance to come be with you. I'm acute.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's called spin. It's called filibustering. It's called burn up the time so that nobody else can get a valid point of view in. And this guy he works for a news station, so he's a professional at doing it. And that's why Joy's laughing at his ass.
Used a privilege and I'm accused of all these things.
Oh my
It's
God.
very
Okay, so
instructive.
let me ask you a very specific question. There was an arrest of an immigrant who went in to seek domestic violence protection. This was somebody in El Paso County in Texas. And their stop in it was a hearing that went from ordinary to unprecedented last week when half a dozen Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents showed up at a courthouse where an undocumented woman was seeking a protective order against the boyfriend she accused of abusing her, and she left under arrest. Do you have any discomfort, JD, with the idea that somebody showed up to try to get protection for domestic violence and was instead swarmed on, essentially, by 6 ICE agents and arrested?
Now watch how he answers the question by not answering the question and talking about something else.
I have a greater degree of discomfort with the Latino on Latina violence in the Washington, D.C. area where a 15-year-old was savagely attacked by members of MS-13. I have a greater...
Why do they always go, it's either black on black crime or Latino on Latino crime? And I guess if some Asians were on the show, he'd be talking about Asian on Asian crime. Jesus.
Concerned about
JD,
law breaking and violence than I do about a situation where people disobey immigration
You
law.
talked earlier about false narratives. You just answered my question about a specific arrest with an attempt to talk about Latino on Latino violence. So essentially, you're trying to ascribe violence to an entire race of people, an ethnic group.
No, I'm not.
As the answer
I'm
to my
simply
question,
using a descriptive
that
term.
is not
I'm
the
simply
answer to my question.
I know,
That's a non
because you want me to
sequitur.
sit
It was
here
a
and
non
flummox. The
sequitur.
MSNBC script is to have a conservative on and treat them as the evil one, tell them to be quiet.
We
not
don't tell you what to say, sir. If you
solutions,
come across
and
poorly, it's
to try
because of
to
what you said.
No, see, the script is for these fast-talking TV hosts from these right-wing networks to get on to a mainstream media, MSNBC or CNN. They don't have to do it in Fox because Fox is going to ride along with them and basically filibuster and spin away from the question that you asked them into a prepared script or narrative that they want to expound upon and never ever answer your question. And that's what this guy has been doing the whole time that he's been on this segment.
Because
You
of
offer
the
pointed
questions that you're
questions. For
being
example, I
asked.
thought it was very illustrative. You asked Maria about Congress rather than asking the congressman.
But you're not a congressman. You're an ex-congressman. You said that yourself in the opening of the show.
I tell you exactly
That's
what went
because you
on
took
at
too
that
long to
meeting.
answer the first question, sweetie.
Oh,
You were
okay.
too long.
All right,
Look, you've been
well, fine.
talking
It's
the whole
very
time.
You've been
You've
talking
been
the whole
talking the
time.
whole
All right, let's give you a chance to answer the specific question about Congress. Why specifically would Latino members of Congress be denied access to a meeting about Immigration and Customs Enforcement, particularly when these were members who were specifically concerned about this and were the ones who raised those concerns? Why would they be kept out of the meeting?
Well, here is what I would offer as conjecture. I was not there, but I have been in plenty of security briefings where there is a list where you work to put yourself on a schedule. And
This is not a security briefing, okay? And Paul Ryan knew damn well that if there was anybody that should have been in those meetings, it was Luis Gutierrez and Joaquin Castro. Okay, but they were specifically barred. As a matter of fact, Gutierrez made it into the meeting, and Paul Ryan asked him to leave. What kind of bullshit is that? Anyway, you'll see it. Hang
my
on.
friend Luis apparently was not put on the list to come in for the briefing, as were others, and so the decision was
They
made
are the
to
ones
claim
who
it
are
was...
asking the questions. So you're saying that you don't find it odd that only Latino Democrats were kept out of that meeting. You don't think that that's strange?
Okay, again, just so that you know, members of the Congressional Black Caucus who also have Hispanic members that they represent, several of them, including the representative from, I think it was St. Louis, he was barred from even going into the meeting. So it wasn't just the members of the Hispanic caucus, it was members of the Black Caucus, Congressional Black Caucus as well.
I don't believe that narrative is exactly the case. I think there's probably
It is
more
according to
to it,
Luis
but I
Gutierrez.
understand. Well, I'll tell you what, we'll take it out of the ethnicity, although that's tough when you take a look at the stunt that
You can't take it out of the ethnicity. The ethnicity is what's being attacked.
Elizabeth Warren pulled, and we know that
What does
she
Elizabeth Warren
falsely
have to
claimed
do
to
with
be
anything?
American Indian. Well,
Wait a
because
minute. Okay.
Okay, notice I told you that this guy is deflecting, diverting, and bringing stuff in that's got nothing to do with it. He just brought in Elizabeth Warren, who's got absolutely nothing to do with this. So again, he's filibustering, he's pulling in stuff from not just left field, foul territory in left field, just to burn time.
never
JD,
stopped
can I
in the
just say
Senate
something? We're going to end here.
set up
But
a
sir,
grade class. I figured
you
would.
talked about
You don't
straw
do
men,
that.
but twice now you've answered questions with non sequiturs that have some sort of an ethnic base to them. Now you've gone after Elizabeth Warren's Native American heritage, which is a complete non sequitur.
She has not.
I think we're done with this
She has
segment
not.
because you
I
literally
have no
answered a
facts or
non
stubborn
sequitur. It's
things.
incredibly offensive.
Thank
I'm
you.
going to let Rosie
You-
Perez talk
I
about the
understand,
organ.
yes,
Thank you
I'm
for
a
being
white
here.
man with
No, you know
privilege.
what?
God bless you all. Thank you so
What an
much.
odd exchange. Odd non sequiturs.
God bless you. There's another holy roller Christian that doesn't have a Christian drop of blood in his body.
We'll
No,
talk to you
it's
for a second,
absolutely
Rosie Perez.
proven.
Thank you. Wow. Anyway, I'm going to give you a chance to respond, and then I know that you have an organization that we want to also talk about as well.
What I want to respond to is this: is that although it's tried and people call it rhetoric, but it's true. We are a nation of immigrants. We are a nation that has been built on the back of immigrants. And where's the heart of America? This is what's really scary with this new administration. The heart of America is disappearing. And here's this the simple fact that this elected official, former elected official that was on, he kept talking and talking and talking and pivoting, and we're not addressing the issues, right? What's going on with hopefully it won't go through with National Guards coming in and gathering up all the
DHS has said they're not going to do that.
people is insane. And also what really bothers me is that still to this day, people compare the immigrant situation, the undocumented situation here in America solely as a Latino issue.
Exactly.
It is not. It is not. There are people here illegally from the UK, from Africa, from Asia, from India, from Haiti, from Canada. They're all over, but yet we get stigmatized, and it's very, very insulting, and it really needs to stop.
Yeah.
It really does. I just really want to concentrate on the kids, on the DACA kids, for them to have a moment in history of relief, of not being afraid, because legislation was passed to protect them, and then that be in jeopardy now. I work in a charity that I co-founded, Urban Arts Partnership, we're going to talk about later. Students are afraid. They're terrified. They are terrified. Students that once were in the closet and came out of the closet, and we were trying to help them to find a way to come be here legally, they ran back inside.
Yeah.
They ran back inside, and that creates a problem. It creates a humongous problem. First of all, they can't sit down in a classroom and learn properly.
And you know why?
Because of the stress and strife. And their families at home are terrified as
Yeah.
well, and they're not allowing them to go to school anymore.
Yeah.
This is a big problem, and people, you better wake up, because it's going to volcano, and once it does,
Yeah.
there's going to be a reckoning.
So what happens is that these kids, what they're saying is it's nice for us, but what about our parents?
Right.
We can't go to school if we're worried about our parents. It's a much larger issue. There's got to be a heart that involves the entire family.
Yeah, absolutely. Very quick, we are out of time. Rosie, very quickly tell us about the Urban Arts Partnership.
Urban Arts Partnership is an arts integrated program that services Title I schools, 150 schools in New York City and Los Angeles. We service over 15,000 kids a year. It is our 25th anniversary. It's going to be at Cipriani in Wall Street on March 15th. Please come down and really, really give to education, give back to our kids.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And this was a very interesting segment. Thank you, guys.
All right, so as I said initially, it's guys like that ex-congressman that are creating or not attempting to help to solve the problem, okay? I'm not saying that illegal immigration is not a problem, because it absolutely is. But it's a problem that needs a solution. And right-wing guys like this are damn sure not going to help us to come to an amiable solution to this problem. And again, I believe that they should do legislation for the DACA kids to cover them, and then we need to go case by case and err on the side of keeping families together rather than separating them and deporting mothers and fathers and leaving their kids here. That's just the way I feel about it. Then throw on top of that kids that are legal U.S. citizens with parents that are here illegally. We need to come up with a solution that pretty much works for everybody. Again, the criminals, they gotta go. They absolutely gotta go. I have no, compassion in my heart for someone that's committed murder, rape, robbery, any type of a violent crime. Lifetime gets a misdemeanor. A traffic ticket is a misdemeanor. Jaywalking is a misdemeanor. Being drunk and throwing up on the street, by the way, is also a misdemeanor. Okay, public lewdness. If you come out in your drawers and if you're a man, something starts swinging, or if you're a woman, a boob happens to pop out, that's public lewdness. That's also a misdemeanor. Okay, misdemeanors, again, you get a pass on having to get kicked out for any type of a minor misdemeanor. But again, anything major, my opinion, you got to go. But we have to sit down and talk about this, and Congress has abrogated their responsibility. They should have come up with legislation about this more than 2 years ago. Just my opinion. And if you stuck it out this long, please share this video, and if you choose to, subscribe.